probability A will IT. And the probability of this one speaks specifically of what's called compound events. I know you've talked about compound complex sentences. Well, compound means more than one event happening at a time. For example, let's say you have a spinner labeled A, B, C, and D, and you roll the ever popular die. One a die, two a dice, I think it is. And I ask you to find what would be the probability. When we do probability, actually I should just put the capital P. Probability of spinning a D and rolling a 6. How often would you be able to, if you just spun the spinner and rolled the dice, what is the probability that you would get those two numbers? One way to do it, ladies and gentlemen, is to do what the book calls make a tree diagram. If they ever talk about a tree diagram, this is what they're speaking. Okay, what you've got is this. Your first level would be like the first thing. You could put either one in any order. You know, if you spin the spinner, what are your possibilities? You could get an A, a B, how much space do I have here? A C, or a D, correct? That's my probability of that. Well, if I'm looking at all my combinations, if I did spin an A first and then roll the dice, well, what could happen? Well, I could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. If I spun a B first, what would be the, well, after a B, I could also get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. This is kind of a long one. If I did a C, I could also get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. And if I did a D, I could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. I'll let you write that down and we'll talk about what that means. You won't have to do this, but it's kind of how it works, so you just kind of get the gist of it there. Jen, you got all those down?
Yes.
You do. Which means this, if you're listing all combinations, your tree diagram shows you what you have. You can get an A and a 1. You can get an A and a 2. You can get an A and a 3, an A and a 4, an A and a 5, and an A and a 6. You can get a B and a 1, a B and a 2, a B and a 3, a B and a 4, a B and a 5, and a B and a 6. You can get a C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6. You can get a D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6. How many total combinations is that? Well, there are 6 for each one of these 4 things. So how many different combinations would you have? Shall I count them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. There are 24 possible combinations. How many of those 24 are D6? Just this one right here. So your probability of spinning a D and then rolling a 6 is 1 out of 24 times. Now let's look at another one. Let's say when you get to be older, you have 3 children. What is the probability that they would all be boys? This one's a little easier because you only get 2 combinations for each. Well, making a tree diagram, your first child could be a boy or it could be a girl. After that, when you have your second child, off of each one of these would be a boy and a girl. And then your third child could also be a boy or a girl, boy or a girl, boy or a girl, boy or a girl. This tree diagram shows you all the combinations, and you can kind of follow it down. You get boy, boy, boy. You get boy, boy, girl. You get boy, girl, boy. You get boy, girl, girl. You can get girl, boy, boy. You get girl, boy, girl. You get girl, girl, boy. And you get girl, girl, girl. So having 3 children, how many total different combinations could you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many of those 8 are what you want? How many boy, boy, boy do we get? Just that one, so it would be 1/8. Just 1/8. Now, what if I change the probability and asked you this? If you had 3 children, what's the probability of having at least 1 girl? What is the probability of having at least 1 girl? You still have 8 combinations. How many of them have at least 1 girl? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which is actually the opposite of having 1. What would be the probability of having at least 2 girls? So how many of these have at least 2 girls? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of the 8 times, or half the time you should get at least 2 girls, which is interesting because what's the probability of having at least 2 boys? Half the time as well. Now, going back to our original one, okay, rather than doing a tree diagram, sometimes you have to, depending on what the question is. There's an easier way to do that, and that would be this. If I'm looking for the probability of a D and a 6, if you have compound events, the probability, write this down, the probability of both happening is their probabilities multiplied together. Is their probabilities multiplied together. Give you a chance to write that down, and then I'll tell you what that means. We already did this one, and we knew my probability here was 1/24th, but let's look at it again. My probability was a probability of a D and a 6. Well, if I take the probability of spinning a D and multiply it by the probability of getting a 6, I should come up with the same thing. What is the probability of getting a D on the spinner? 1 in 4. What's the probability of getting a 6? 1 in 6. The probability of both of those things happening is when you multiply the 2 fractions together, 1/24. Let me change that. What if I asked you this? What would be the probability of rolling an A and then getting an even number? Well, without having to draw the big tree diagram, it's the same thing as the probability of getting an E times the probability of an even number. What's the probability of getting an A? Again, 1 in 4. If you roll a dice, what's your even numbers? If you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many even numbers are there? 1, 2, 3, 3, 6, which is 1/2. If you multiply those 2 probabilities together, you get the probability of both happening. Probability of both happening. Or this, what's the prob of drawing the jack of hearts and then flipping a coin and getting a head? Now you certainly wouldn't want to do a tree diagram with all the possible card combinations, because how many cards are in a deck of cards? 52. How many of those are jacks of hearts?
4.
No, we want one jack of hearts. So your probability of getting the jack of hearts is 1 in 52. What is your probability of flipping a head? 1/2. The probability of both of those happening, 1 over 104. 104. Which lends itself to ask, we can now figure out kind of, let's just look at, let's say you had the world's easiest lottery. Well, I guess I can't necessarily do that. Does anybody know how the lottery works? How many numbers do you pick? Is it 6? 5?
Yeah,
I think it's
6.
7 or 8.
6.
You picking 6 numbers out of, I don't know, let's just say, I know it goes to 60, but let's just say out of 1 to 20. Alright, so you are looking for the probability of picking all 6 numbers. So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, that's where we're looking. Well, what is, if we have 20 numbers, what's the probability of you getting the first one right? How many numbers are there? How many numbers? Yeah, it's just 120. Now things change a little on this one because you can't draw the same number twice. Actually you can. Let's go, well no it's not. So let's say you picked one of the numbers. How many numbers are now left? There's only 19 numbers left. How many of those 19 numbers do you have to pick? One of them. Now there's only going to be 18 numbers left, but you still got to pick one of them. And then there's only 17 numbers left, but you still got to pick one of them. Then there's only 16 numbers left, you still got to pick one of them. And then 15, and you still got to pick one of them. The probability, if the lottery just went up to 20 numbers, not 60, would be what you get when you multiply 20 times 19 times 18 times 17 times 16 times 15. One of those. Mrs. Myers.
Are you okay if I put these in your lunches?
You know what? Set it on my desk because are those the spring ones?
Yes.
I just tell them, I say, you know what, if you're 100% sure you're not, don't want them, don't even take them.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
And then I send an email home saying, parents, if you do want them, because otherwise everybody's like,
It's a nightmare getting them back. Okay,
right there.
thank
So
you.
thank you. Let me just do that. Let's do the calculating by Mr. Calculator. Where'd it go? So 20 times 19 times 18 times 17 times 16 times
What?
27, almost close to 28 million. 1 in 28 million.
Oh my god.
And that's
I like
only with 20 numbers. I know there's like 60, so you'd have to multiply that by 60, 60, 59, whatever.
I like those. What?
Even if I gave you the numbers between 1 and 10, and I said pick 3 of them, just getting 3 numbers out of 1 to 10. Well, your probability of picking the first one right is 1 in 10. And the next one would be 1 in 9. And then the next one would be 1 in 8. The odds or the probability, if I gave you 10 numbers and you picking the right 3 ones, would be 10 times 9 times 8. 1 in 720.
Wow.
Which means this. I could charge you all $1 and tell you, well, I could say, you give me $1, you pick 3 numbers right, if you get it right, I'll give you $500. And I'm still gonna come out way money ahead because for this really to be fair, the lottery really to be fair, I should give you $720 if you win. But you say, but our lottery goes up to $1 billion. Why is that? Because nobody wins it. I mean, they do eventually, but it rolls over once somebody doesn't win it. And then they start calculating by how many people buy tickets and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The moral of the story, children, is don't play the lottery.
Yeah.
Their little motto is somebody's gonna win. I
Yeah,
believe
billion
you. I could tell you somebody's gonna die too. That might,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna fall off the Empire State Building. My little dude. You know, somebody's going to stub their toe tonight. You know, that's a silly saying. I mean, that's, they say you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice than of winning the lottery.
I think I'd rather win the lottery.
How many people know? How many of you know somebody that have been hit by lightning? Anybody? Do you really?
Yeah, my grandma's neighbor 2 doors down.
How many people know somebody that's won the lottery?
I know.
Now the big lottery or just like the little small whatever?
Like,
Wait, my grandma won $10,000
Really? She went on phone.
10,000.
10,000. Gave it all to you, Josh. I remember Sienna's mom got ripped off, she said.